Thanks for pressing play. I've just been so lucky to spend an hour with the wonderful Kim Sorrelle as a guest on the Love Is podcast. My name is Sean Bellerby. I specialize in helping people overcome any personal challenges in the way of them realizing their dream life that's overflowing with financial abundance, joy, and purpose. So if you know there's something bigger out there for you, maybe it feels like your current 9 to 5 is just not fulfilling for you. Maybe you know there's some personal challenges in your road that you need to clear to realize your best life. Maybe you want to make more money doing something that gives you way more freedom and joy. If any of this resonates with you, you're going to want to listen into this episode. I'd love to hear from you after the show. You can find me at my website, manifestwithsean.com. That's manifestwithsean.com, or give me a follow over on Instagram at Sean Bellerby. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to the show. I'm so glad that you're here. You are going to be so glad that you're here. I'm Kim Sorrelle. I speak, I write, I do some fun things in life. My favorite thing of all, though, is meeting incredible people. And today is no exception. Today we have Sean Bellerby here, and you are going to love him. You're going to learn so much about him. He's been through some things in life, and you know how it is. When you get through some things in life, it just makes you stronger and more resilient. And then he's working on some cool stuff he's going to tell us about. So without further ado, Sean, welcome to the show.
Kim, thank you so much for having me. This has been the pinnacle of my week, and I couldn't be more stoked to be here. So thank you.
Well, good. I'm so glad that you're here. You know, just before we started recording, you said this is not a fake Australian accent.
Right. No, it is definitely not a fake Australian accent. I did grow up in Australia. I have been living in Santa Monica, in fact, for 9 years now, and I found home here. I love it here, and I just feel so blessed every day. You know, when I walk outside and go, wow, like I live just 3 blocks from the beach, and it's just such an amazing place to live.
Yeah, I bet it is. I live in Michigan where it's cold and there's snow on the ground. And I used to say to my parents, why didn't you move before I made friends? Like we
Right.
should be somewhere warm, but you know, friends and family kind of keep me here. But I can always travel somewhere warm, so that's a good thing. So,
Yes.
Sean, I want people to get to know you. So
Mhm.
I want to hear about 8-year-old Sean.
Wow. 8-year-old Sean. So I think people probably would have called me Shawnee back then as a start, you know. So my family's originally from the central coast of New South Wales, which is just north of Sydney. And unfortunately, you know, at 8, I was growing up experiencing my parents divorcing, and it was a horrible experience as a child. And you know, I don't think any child should ever have to understand what divorce is after being through that myself. And as a child, I was I often felt quite lost. You know, I certainly didn't feel very trusting of things, and I struggled a little with finding my way and my direction, which I of course have later found. Though as an 8-year-old child, I remember that you know I struggled with certainly finding direction. I struggled with um, feeling safe, you know, and I certainly, you know, I had a lot of love from my mom, and she's an amazing woman. Though, you know, with the environment that I grew up in, it certainly wasn't easy.
Mm. I can't imagine that. I your sense of security, I could see where that would just be broken. You know, you think
Mhm.
life is going in one direction and all of a sudden there's two Christmases or, you know, however things end up working out. And that has to be so disarming for a kid.
Right. And for me, when I remember, because, of having parents that are divorcing, and I always felt very different from everyone else in school, because everyone, it felt like that everyone else had these loving families at home, and my family was different because of what was going on. And I always felt like I had to uh, hide things in terms of what was happening at home. And it was just a very broken, it was just a very broken way to grow up, unfortunately. And later on, of course, this created some personal challenges for myself, which I of course overcame, and have created a beautiful life for myself. But these are some of the things that I really had to endure and overcome from a very young age.
Yeah, yeah, not so easy. So then you were a teenager, you're a sports guy. Talk about that a little bit, because you're not just a sports guy, but you're like a really, really, really cool, good sports guy.
Right. Thank you, Kim. So my first love of sport was in fact basketball, and I created a really great life for myself with the local basketball community. And I started refereeing basketball at a very young age, and because I was always at the basketball stadium, and I wanted to make a little bit of money, so I started refereeing basketball at a young age, and I was playing basketball and played very good basketball, and I loved that. And also where I grew up, we got to surf a lot, and one of the things that my dad did that I really loved was he bought us this little boat so we could drive ourselves to the surf after school, which was awesome because it meant, I mean, ultimately he wanted to be at work, right? So he's created a vehicle for us to get to the surf, but still we were still able to get to the water every day, and we surfed up to school. It was a lot of fun, right? But basketball was my first big sports passion, and a little later in life, that turned into snowboarding, and I still am very active with snowboarding, and snowboarding has been my number one passion in life. It also became part of the first business I started as well, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a minute. But they've been my big sports things, especially surfing and snowboarding, and now yoga as well.
Yeah, well, and you competed, right? Like at a high level.
So with basketball, yes, and more so on the refereeing side of it, and then on the snowboarding side of things as well. I am qualified as a snowboard coach. So, and I often liken it to this. I've got both a master's degree in marketing and an MBA, and I spent way more time on snow getting those qualifications in snowboarding than I actually did in school getting those two degrees. So snowboarding is certainly something that that I love. And those that know me know that I snowboard very well. And it's something that I'm still active in coaching.
Yeah, that's so cool. And isn't it funny that you say that you spent more time getting certified there than you did in the classroom? That
Right.
says a lot about how well trained you are out on the
Right.
slopes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It still is I just love it. And I always will. It's my life's number one passion. That is for sure. That's the snowboarding. So
And of course, you moved to Santa Monica so you could be by that big mountain and snowboard all the time.
right. Well, that's part of the reason. Part of the reason why I love living in Santa Monica is that it's a beautiful, beautiful community. And I remember when I first moved here, and I'd been in San Francisco raising money for the first company I started, and I wasn't enjoying it, and it just felt to me like San Francisco. Obviously, each to their own. I'm not here to write off different places, right? But it just didn't. The environment wasn't for me, and and I called a very good friend of mine, and she's like, just get on a plane and go to LA. You love LA. So I got on a plane. The next day, I flew down to Los Angeles from San Francisco. I had no idea where to go next. I landed at LAX. I was like, all right, what do I do? Where do I go now? And I remember having been in Santa Monica once before. So I thought, all right, I'll just go to Santa Monica. That's a good start. So I get to Santa Monica. I checked into a place. on 2nd Street. There was a yoga studio next door. I think that's why I checked into the place, because I thought, right, like, I can get to this yoga studio. We're cooking with gas. This is great, So, and then I hit this yoga class on, at 4:30 on a Friday afternoon. And after the class, I hung around and I just was like chanting for a little bit, because I could feel the energy breaking up inside of me from the different experience that I'd had in San Francisco, where I felt very blocked. And as soon as I got to Santa Monica, I started to just feel all of these blockages freeing. And I said to the woman that taught the class, and she's now a very good friend of mine because I've been practicing at the same place since that day in 2016. I said, there's a very special energy here. I could feel it in the back room. And she looked at me and she smiled and she said, there's just a lot of consciousness in the west side of Los Angeles, which is what you probably just tuned into. And I've never forgot that. And it is totally true, because you can create anything you want in this town. And people come here a lot of the time or they move to LA because their dreams are bigger than perhaps the town they grew up in, right? So they move to a place where they can realize their dream life. And LA is a place where people here, they're creating their dream lives, whether that's in the arts, whether that's creating tech companies, whether that's creating, another friend of mine started a great fashion company, all in and around these areas. So you can really create whatever is true to you here. And it's a very inspiring place to live.
Yeah, wow. Well, it sounds great. Now the whole country is going to be moving there, so I
Right.
hope there's plenty of space. Yeah, it sounds like a great place to live. So your journey hasn't always been an easy one to get
Right.
to where you are today. So I'd love for you to talk about that a bit. Like we all go through our stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, they say. I just think that if you take the things, the bumps in the road, the hard things, and you get through them, that it just builds a strength within you. And so I'd just love to hear, how did you get from where you were to where you are?
Right. Sure. So the major challenge for me that I got stuck on was alcohol. I got myself to the point where I was drinking too much. So I was really lucky where out of school, I landed a job in a software company, funnily enough, right? And I got back from a ski season. My brother, he's like, dude, you should go and talk to, this software company, right? A friend of mine works there and they need a young guy to do the young guy stuff. And I was meant to go to university. And so I went down there and I spoke to them and they gave me a job doing the young guy stuff, right? Supporting the sales guys and those types of tasks. And it turned out it was the fastest growing software company in the world at the time. That was, venture capital backed out of the Silicon Valley. They just opened an office in Sydney and they were going to market in the Australian market. So I got my start in software there, which was really awesome. And it underpinned my whole career as well as the company that I later started. And in that, something that I was starting to become aware of was that I was drinking too much, right? Now, this all came to a head later on in my 20s, when I thought, right, I really have to handle this, because my life was starting to fall apart, right? So I was starting to have trouble with relationships, and my work wasn't as good as it used to be, and I certainly wasn't as healthy as I used to be, and I knew that this was out of alignment to who I really was, right? I knew that I was not here to be committed to alcohol, or to be committed to having relationships that weren't unreal, and I knew I wanted to have beautiful relationships in my life, and I knew I wanted to have great health in my life, and I knew that I was here to create something really great. And so the link to then go, okay, well, this this alcohol is stopping you from getting to where you want to be. And I started to work with a meditation-based change coach to change all that. And it was the most transformational and profound experience that I've had in my life. So we did this without AA meetings, without rehabs, without any medications. It was all through using meditation as a tool to be free from the past, to be free from addictions, to be free from acting out of integrity, and then aligning myself with my heart's true call. And that piece of work, it all happened so quickly within a couple of months. The energy shift, the changes in my life that had happened were incredible, and I think there are, people that probably remember the change, and it could be explained as night and day. And as part of that, as we started to get through this process of being free from the past, being free from, addictions, being free from acting out of integrity, one of the insights that Justine Rozcek, her name was, she's actually unfortunately no longer with us. She was a world-renowned spiritual teacher, and she tragically lost her life in 2017 due to a police shooting up in Minneapolis. Anyway, heartbreaking tragedy for me and many others. And, Justine had said to me, I was just very lucky that I got to spend all this time with her, and Justine had said to me, she said, Sean, are you aware, that when we talk about snowboarding, your entire energy changes? Like it's, your whole energy shifts. You become very excited, and it's inspiring to see. And she's like, why haven't you done anything with snowboarding yet? I said, well, I also like to make money, right? And the software companies paid me very well to be there, right? So it's like, I've got this software company that pays a lot of money to be there, and then, a passion for snowboarding. So from there, we did another piece of work that really helped me tune into what might the possibilities be, right? To make money and snowboard. And I created a company together with a gentleman by the name of Scott Anfang, who's a great friend of mine, and he's been an excellent business partner. And we started a company called Go Snow, which was a bookings platform for the winter snow sports industry. So I married my software skills together with my snowboarding skills, and we created this awesome company that was going to help people do more of what Scott and I loved so deeply, which was snowboarding. And it was just one of the best experiences of my life. And that's how I ended up here in Santa Monica. Scott and I started this venture, and it was clear it was going to be a US company because our first customers came from the USA. Our first investors were coming from here. Scott's originally from here. So we were a US company, and I'm just so grateful it worked out that way.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So, Sean, you said a whole lot there that I want to unpack a little bit. Congratulations on figuring out a way to marry your passions. That's pretty big. And for figuring out what you needed to do with yourself, with your life, to make sure that you're going the right path. And I like the way you said it, like that, because I often think that people will look at somebody and go, oh gosh, they're an alcoholic. Well, they're not. They're Tom, they're Susan, whatever. It doesn't make who you are. It's something that you're doing.
Right.
It might be an issue that you have, but you like you did, you got back down to the core of who you are. And you weren't alcohol. I mean, that's not who you were. Just something that was going on in your life, right?
Right. And I believe that there is a middle ground with a lot of things. I believe that for me, it was a matter of changing a relationship, a pattern I had that was with my behavior around alcohol, right? I don't consider myself an alcoholic, right? And a lot of the people I work with, I wouldn't consider as alcoholics either. Sure, there is behavior that they need to change, right? And there are tools that we can use to do that. right? But ultimately for me and most of the people I work with, it's an emotional addiction that they have, right? And for me, that came down to guilt, shame, and fear. Perhaps a lot of the things I picked up as 8-year-old Sean, right? So it was changing those and being freeing from those emotions, which helped me free the pattern in my relationship with alcohol, right? I was not addicted to the substance. I was addicted to the guilt and the shame and the fear that had been in my system, my body for decades.
Wow. Wow. I love that you just said that and the way that you said that, because I mean, no matter what, any sort of a label that we ever put on anybody or we put on ourselves is typically destructive, because we're not the labels people put on us or the labels that whatever. And yeah, I mean, people, we grow up and we have these things happen to us while we grow up, things said to us, things done to us, things with maybe some with good intention, some with not good intention. We hear things from teachers, we hear things from whoever it is in our life, and
Right.
they're not all good. And so we take on that guilt, that shame, and certainly divorce, my word, wondering if I don't know, I have friends that come from homes where they were kids when their parents got divorced, and they always wondered if they were somehow responsible. And
Right.
so, yeah, did you feel the same? Like, is that where your guilt came from?
I I can't remember feeling like was I responsible. What I do remember was knowing that this wasn't love, right? I knew that this was not what was happening was not love. That I do remember.
Yeah, yeah. So, but you got rid of all that stuff.
Right.
You figured out that that's where things were coming from, which is always the case. There's a root, there's a something there. And so to do the inner work helps you change the outer.
100%. And on that was one of the things that Justine taught while she was here. And I consider myself Justine's number one student, right? I spent more time with her than anyone. Her husband, or the man she was soon to marry, which she would have married had she stayed with us 2 more weeks. Don Demond, great guy, real legend, who's become an excellent friend to me, and I really appreciate him so much. Um, he or Justine would teach four main energies, love, appreciation, forgiveness, and gratitude. And what Justine taught, which is now what I'm so blessed to teach others, is cultivating those four energies inside of us, right? Cultivating the energy of forgiveness first and foremost, cultivating the energy of love for ourselves first and foremost, and cultivating the energies of appreciation and cultivating the energies of gratitude. And I'm very lucky. I have a nephew. I also have a brother. He's 12 years older than me, and he has an amazing son, my nephew, Finn. And these are the things that I talk to Finn about. It's like, dude, we just want to be cultivating these energies inside of us. Because to your point, Kim, it's our inside game, right, that starts to reflect our outer experience. So we want love in our life. We want to cultivate love inside of us, right? Cultivating self-love for everything that happens in our life, right? Cultivating love for our thinking, our feeling, our behaviors, no matter what. And by doing that, by cultivating more love, we'll start to get more love entering, our outer experience. And it's the same with the other energies that I just mentioned as well.
That's so interesting that you say that, because there is, it's palatable sometimes when you're around people that just exude love. It's
Right.
like magnetic. Like you want to be by those people. You want to be friends with them. You want to be in their presence because it's such a great energy.
Mm-hmm.
And love is, the ultimate of all the energies, but what you've named are all just so, so, so vital and important. And then talking about self-love, so many people struggle with that. And
Right.
uh, I, I think I know a lot of the reasons why, but how do you overcome the struggles?
Great question. So self-love is our natural state, in fact, right? So self-love's our natural state. When we're born, when we come down here to experience this human experience, like self-love is our natural state. It's what happens, right? When we get down here, we start to put all of this stuff on top of our heart, right? Guilt, shame, fear, divorce, things that happen in life, all different tragedies, right? Breakups, whatever it might be, right? We've all been through something, right? And it's by letting go, right, of all of that stuff. It's by being free from all of those emotions that we pick up over time when self-love starts to come way easier.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And it's about doing the work, right?
Right.
I mean, it's not like just overnight you go, you know what? All shame, all guilt, my whole past, I'm just gonna put in a box, put it on a shelf, and just be done with it. Like
Right.
there's some work involved.
There's a lot of work involved, actually. And it's funny you say that because I love it when people say, oh, just let it go. It's like, just let it go. Just let it go, man. It's like, dude, there's so much work, inner work, right, in peeling some of this stuff away, right? And it takes courage a lot of courage to actually do it and sit there and front some of this stuff, right? It takes a lot of courage and it takes a significant amount of unraveling it and being free from it using tools, unraveling a lot of it with a coach. There's a lot of work involved.
Yeah. So speaking of a lot of work involved, like what did that look like for you time wise?
Right. So initially, right, when I knew I had to make a change, right, and a lot of people that come to me, it sounds something like this. Sean, I've tried everything. Like, okay, right. Well, tell me what you've tried, right? Well, I've been seeing a therapist for the past 18 months, and I've been paying $300 a week and spending 50 minutes with this person, and I'm just not getting anywhere. I've tried medication. I've tried 12-step programs. Like I've tried all this stuff and it's just not working, right? And I tried all that stuff myself, right? So the and it took all that stuff took way longer than all of the stuff Justine taught me to use, right? Like so that was like a lot of the time people will come to me and they've been doing those things for 12 to 18 months. They just haven't got anywhere. With the meditation based tools, right? That the program of work that I completed in with Justine, the change from the change was it was night and day over a couple of months. From 30 days to 60 days to 90 days. And it all started with just not doing the same things, right? That we previously done, you know. And one of the big things that Justine taught me that I can say right now is not taught at any of the programs, right? And your therapist might say something similar to you, but when we're in the process of change, right? It's so important to be compassionate to yourself, right? To love yourself and to never beat yourself up for anything. And the reason for that, right? And Justine taught me this. She's like, Sean, if you keep beating yourself up over this stuff, it's just going to accelerate a return back to whatever that old behavior is that you're trying to free yourself from, right? So it just even this one understanding, and I was like, well, what if this happens? She's like, just get up, dust yourself off, love yourself, and move on and move forward in the direction of where you want to go, right? And that to me was one of the best things anyone's ever said to me, right? Because immediately I started to free myself from guilt, from shame, from fear, from all of these emotions that had me addicted to, things in my outer world that my body would use. Hey, he needs more guilt, or he needs more shame, or he needs more feel. I know, tell him to go and pick up that drink. That's going to help with that, right? So that was one of the things that helped, right? Just that simple knowledge of being compassionate to yourself, being loving to yourself, and just not beating yourself up, right? I often say to people, that when in the process of change, to remind yourself often that in taking these steps to change, you're pruning away your old self, right? And so that you can create your new future and your dream life. But it takes courage, and it takes sometimes 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Like it's a process. Though I'll say, if the tools that Justine taught me and that I teach others, this change can happen way faster, from a 30 to 60 to 90-day period, to be free from some of these very destructive patterns that people have. And these destructive patterns, it's not just alcohol. For me, that's what it looked like. But for others, it could be things like toxic relationships, or it could be drama, or it could be comparing oneself to others on social media. I mean, comparison just being the thief of joy, right? So it's not just alcohol, it's other destructive patterns that are in the way of us creating our dream life.
Wow. Comparison, the thief of joy. That's
Right.
pretty profound. But yeah, to give yourself a break, right? Like, have some grace, give yourself some grace. We're all going to do stupid stuff in life.
Right.
I do stupid stuff. I mean, it happens, but give yourself grace, like we should give other people grace to change and grow. We should give ourselves that same grace and show ourselves compassion. I love that you said that. That's so good, Sean. That's so true.
Right.
And so in doing that, so those words alone change things for you. Like,
Those words and that practice alone, but also coming to an understanding of that there is an energy out there that loves me, that wants the best for me, that will bring anything to me, and all it wants me to do is wake up, right? All it wants me to do is pay attention. That's it, right? And just knowing that energy was there, and then having someone who loved me so much, Justine, work with me on those things, was just an incredible experience.
yeah, that's huge. That's huge. Yeah, it's it's so good. It's so good, I think, to talk about, to
Right.
hear, because people carry stuff around that you don't have to be carrying around.
Right.
And there's a way out, right?
hmm
Yeah.
there is a way out, right? And it starts with, first and foremost, just becoming aware that, hey, perhaps there is an energy that loves me, that wants the best for me, right? And then a willingness to want to change, right? And And that's going to crack the door open to so many amazing new possibilities. And that's where it started for me. And it's where it starts with the people I work with a lot of the time too.
Yeah, that's so good. People talk about purpose and wondering what their purpose is, or looking for their purpose, or constantly, wondering if they're living in their purpose. And I think that your purpose is to be authentically 100% you,
Mm-hmm.
not who people say you are, not what you've been told you are, not anything else, but just be you, be who you are created to be.
Right.
That's all you got to do.
That's
It's so simple.
that's all you have to do. And I'd like to. I've recently been asking myself, and it's a question I revisit often too, in and around purpose. And I love to help people, right? And I also love to do the things that I love to do. And at the end of the day, we're here having this experience to be happy, to have fun, to experience love, and to really live great lives. And that's what we're here to do. And for me, that looks like surfing, it looks like snowboarding, it looks like yoga, like it looks like all of these things that feel true and amazing to me. What it doesn't look like is alcohol, right? But what it does look like is all those other cool things, right? And that is enough purpose for me. So everything I create in my life, as long as I'm going in the direction of, will this help me do more of what I love to do, surf and snowboard and practice yoga, then I know I'm headed in the right direction, right? So when I create a company, Go Snow, will this help me do more snowboarding? It totally did, right? Uh, I'm now working on a couple of other different initiatives, perhaps even bigger than Go Snow, right? And it's all still creating an environment where I can do more of those things that I love to do with the people that I love to do them with, right? And that to me is purpose, as well as I do love to help people, which is why I have my practice as a coach. And that's also what I teach, that purpose, much like the way you laid it out, Kim, is way easier to connect to than people sometimes imagine. And that's just because it's more simple. It's actually right there in front of us. It's just people go, no, it can't be that easy. It actually is.
Yeah, it is. It is that easy. And I think when you live in your purpose, when you're truly you, when you're 100% you,
Right.
it opens up your mind in a different way. Like your imagination, what we lose quite often when we're a child, we usually have this great imagination, right? And we're playing cops and robbers, or whatever we're playing outside, and we've got huge imaginations that we tend to squash, and all the things in life just kind of beat it down, beat it down, beat it down. Well, when you're living who you're created to be, you give yourself a chance to open your mind and your imagination again. And so,
Right.
Sean, I'm wondering if that's what your company is so out of the box, right? It's not like, oh, this company has existed before, so I'm just going to repeat what these guys did. You did something all brand new.
Right. And we all have that, right? We all have a unique gift to give to the world. And it's our own unique path to wealth for that matter as well, right? And it's no good trying to copy and build something that someone else did that was successful, because if it's not true to you, the money's not going to flow in through those bridges that you built, right? So it is about, and I love that you linked this to imagination, right? And then linking it back to something we've been talking about through the call has been, our imagination gets buried in some of these really pesky emotions, right? And some of these behaviors that we know are out of alignment with ourselves. Like one of the women I work with, a lot of her imagination is buried, in comparison on social media platforms, or in judgment, or in these things. It's being free from all of that to then open the space for these quicksilver thoughts, these brilliant ideas, right? These intuitive hits that we all get. So, hey, I could create this. And wouldn't that be a beautiful life? Wouldn't that just be unreal? And oh my God, that would just feel so amazing to me if I would create that. That right there is the idea, the thought that is gonna prop up once we set ourselves in a place where we have gained that imagination back.
Yeah, and it is a wonderful thing when you can sit and dream and imagine, and
Right.
it puts you at a whole different level, right? It just puts life at a whole different level when you realize that there aren't limits. You don't have boundaries around you. You're not stuck in a box of some sort. You can get out of that box. You can think of ways. You can dream up what you were created to dream up, right?
Right.
And really use your imagination. You talk about comparison. I think about years ago, my husband, we bought a house, and our little kids, all under 5 years old. I mean, it was crazy, crazy time in life. But we loved our house. Like we thought, man, this is great. We got enough bedrooms for all the kids. We have this 3-acre yard, and we put in a beach volleyball in the back and a putting green, and kids love
Beautiful.
playing outside, right? Like this was so great. Well, he went to work for a security company, a home security company, where he was selling and installing security systems in these McMansions. And then he'd come home and he'd go, I used to like our house, but man, you should have seen the house I saw today. Like, oh my
Right.
God. And that's what happens when we are stuck in comparison. Whatever you're in, wherever you're at, that's where your joy should be. Not
100%.
not in somebody else's life, not in somebody else's house. That's theirs, and that can be theirs. You can dream about having stuff. You can dream about doing more, having more. You can dream about that stuff, but find your joy in today, where
Right.
you're at today.
Find your joy in where you're at today, in what you have today, in who you're with today, right? Like it is so important that we appreciate immensely what we have in this present moment, right? It is so important. And when we're not in that state of appreciation, I'll give an example. One of the men I work with, right? I've been helping him see that just by being more present to the relationship that he has, right? That's his wife, right? He's going to gain so much more to the experience that's with him in this present moment, right? And it's such an important thing to understand just how lucky we are to have the things that we have right in front of us, whether that be houses, businesses, relationships, and to honor those and to appreciate those and to spend time and energy in those, not at someone else's house, someone else's relationship, someone else's idea, right? Be with and appreciate what you have.
Yeah, it goes right back to those energies of appreciation and gratitude, right? Being grateful for what you've got. And it goes back to love. One of the things about love is that love does not envy. And when I was working on that, because I took this year to figure out the true meaning of love, right? This Eat, Pray, Love experience, mostly in Haiti. And I was working on love does not envy. And I thought, well, holy cow, where is that going to lead exactly? And it took me an entire month to figure it out. But what I figured out is that so often it's the comparison thing, right? Well, that's not love. There's no love in that. You wish you had what somebody else has in not a healthy way. Right? Not, man, this guy, he built this business that he loves and he's successful. I can do that. That's okay. You can aspire to be more, have more, do more, whatever it is, but not in an unhealthy way. Like not in a way that, he has this. First of all, if he has it, so can you probably. if you do the right thing. But secondly, really love that doesn't envy is happy for people.
Right.
Instead of wishing you had what they have, you're just happy for people.
Mm-hmm.
So you go to somebody's house that maybe is bigger, better than yours, at whatever it is. It should be, wow, go you guys. Like, this place is great, right?
Unreal.
Yeah,
What a beautiful home, right?
yeah, right. Like, root for people. We
Yeah,
should
and
be
feel it.
for
Like
each other.
feel, wow, how amazing this feels to be standing here. This is just beautiful.
Right, right. And I appreciate you having us over to see
Yeah.
the beautiful house. Or, yeah, right. Yeah. So love would just say, be happy for people. Be
Hmm.
happy for people, and don't envy. It's, they call it the green-eyed monster for a reason, because it's a monster. It can eat away at your life.
Right. It totally can. And I love that you figured out, the true meaning of in love in just a month. Like I think that is an absolute, huge accomplishment, right? One of the things that I hear one of the commentators say at the moment, is what would love do, right? What would love do in this situation, right? And I have recently broken up with a girl, and I loved this girl, right? And we had a beautiful relationship. Unfortunately, it, we shared different visions, and it came to the right decision at the time to go separate ways, right? And in this, like, you know, I'm always asking myself, what would love do in this situation, right? How would love act? How would love think? How would love behave? Right? And it certainly takes a thought. Like, it certainly takes standing back and observing a situation and asking yourself that question, and then going, okay, because sometimes a lot of the time we don't get to choose, right? What feelings may immediately come up, right? But we do get to choose how we react to that response, to that feeling, and then we do get to choose if we want to free ourselves from that feeling and look at this in a different way. And the way I practice, the way I teach others to practice as well, is just what would love do and how would love respond.
Gosh, that's so good. I happen to usually have a wristband on that I don't have on right now. That is WWLD. What would love do? And
Right.
and absolutely, that changes the game. There
Hmm.
was a craze a while ago, sort of still going on. WWJD, if you remember
Right.
that, what did Jesus do?
Yes.
It's different to everybody, right? Like, to some he's God and love and light and peace and all things good, and to some he's a heretic, to some he's a prophet, to some
Hmm.
he's God, but he's got a heavy hand, right? So what would Jesus do could be answered in so many different ways by different people, but love is universal.
Love is
So,
universe.
yeah, so if you can do things, asking yourself first, what would love do? How would love react? What would love do? Then you're going to do the right thing. Chances
Right.
are you're going to go the right way. And I love
Hmm.
that you talked about we do have choices. We do have choices. When we
Right.
let somebody else control our response, right? Like, too often, I think that can happen. Somebody gets you riled up. Well, nobody needs to get you riled up.
That's
You're
right.
letting yourself get riled up by what they're saying or what they're doing. Your
Hmm.
response is your response. They should have no control over your response. And I think that's an interesting concept for people, because we can be so reactionary, right? He does this, I'm going to do that. He cuts me off in traffic, I'm going to tailgate on me. Yells out his window, whatever it is, right? And we react in a certain way, or somebody yells at us, and we're going to yell back, and and
Right.
but we don't have to. We don't.
No, no, we don't. We don't have to. And sometimes it can be so overwhelming, and maybe cut off in traffic is a great example, right? Particularly in Los Angeles. Right. So and sometimes, we do get immense emotions, right? And sometimes it can be, I'm angry, right? And that's okay. Feel it, right? And the call to action here that you and I are both promoting him is, just because you're feeling that doesn't mean you have to respond in the same way. And it may be that you take a minute to go and look at this differently, or take a minute to feel about it differently, and maybe more than a minute, right? And then respond to it in a loving way, or by asking the question, what would love do?
Hmm. Absolutely. Oh my gosh, I love it. It's just so true. It's so true. And it does change everything. I heard this couple that were both they're both psychologists, and I heard them on a TED Talk a while ago. And one of the things that they do as a couple, and I thought, man, you guys are so smart. You got the degrees for a reason, I guess. Whatever. But because when you do react in that anger, because yeah, of course you're going to be angry sometimes. Of course you're going to be frustrated. Of course you're going to feel all the emotions and feel them. That's all well and fine. But it's what you do with it, right? That you get to pick what you do with it. And so, a couple might be fighting, and then voices get a little bit louder and get a little bit louder. And then pretty soon, it's not just about the dirty boots on the floor. Now it's in the last week. You did that, and 2 years ago, you were, whatever, right? And
Yes.
you change, your body changes. Your blood pressure rises, you got all these endorphins running through your body, like
Mm-hmm.
everything is elevated. And in that moment, nothing is going to be solved. Nothing,
Nothing.
nothing. There's no good that's going to come from that moment. Words are going to be said that you can't take back. Things are just going to go bad. And so what they recommend, and I think is so good, is they have a word. And if either one of them says the word, they walk away from each other.
Right.
And the word is like banana or something. I mean, it can be any word, but they've made this pact that if either one of them feels like they're getting, riled up in the wrong way, then they say the word and they have to walk away from each other. I think that's so smart.
And it was so smart, just with a fun word to disarm the situation. We're taking this way too seriously right now, right? Let's disarm this. Let's go and do something. For me, I would go for a surf or snowboard, or get back to something I enjoy, and start to think about this in a way that, after I have invited some love into my life through one of those outlets, right? And then start to thinking about this in a way, hey, I really love this woman, I really love this man, or I really love my partner, right? And what's and then, as we're ready, getting back to a conversation that is going to be productive.
Right, right. Yeah, and so often, I think especially with couples, what you're fighting about is usually so small. It's usually not that big a deal. It's usually not so earth-shattering that it has to go into some sort of an argument.
Right.
But we can, as human beings, be pretty good at making it bigger, than it has to be.
1,000%. Right.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So keeping things on the even keel is a good idea.
Mhm.
Sean, I imagine you are an incredible coach, and that anybody who works with you is going to come out with this glow that you have. I mean, you can see in your eyes that you exude love and joy and peace, all things that everybody wants. That it's wonderful to know that you can come to this place, and anybody can at any age, right?
Anyone can, no matter what's happened in the past, no matter how you grew up, no matter if your parents divorced, or you're still lucky that they're together, right? No matter what you did, right? There is absolutely no reason why you can't create your dream life that is overflowing with joy, financial abundance, love, and purpose.
Absolutely. And, some people get hung up on the financial abundance part. And they think, well, then I'm being greedy, or then, if I talk about wanting more money, that, something is wrong with that. Well, there's not. I mean, if you're a Christian, I've known Christians that kind of get hung up on this, like, oh, geez, you can't, you got to live as a pauper or something. But the Bible says the opposite of that.
Right.
Right? Yeah. I mean,
back to rich man. I believe. I'm not I'm not a huge. I'm not a student of the Bible, so to say, but I've heard enough to have heard that once or twice before.
Right. I mean, there's a story that Jesus tells in the Bible about these three men that were given different amounts of money.
Right.
And one was given a ton. It was given 5 talents, is what it was called. And the talent was actually 20 years of no work. It was 20 years of pay. So it meant 20 years of no work. So 5 talents he was given. Another guy was given 3, and another guy was given 1. And they could do with it what they wanted. And when they went back to report what they did with it, the guy that had 5 doubled it. He invested, he did stuff with it, he doubled it. And then the guy who had 3, he doubled it because he invested stuff, he did some stuff, and he doubled it. The guy that had 1 buried it in the ground, and it did not grow at all.
Right.
And because he buried it in the ground and it did not grow, there was no happiness coming from the giver of the talents. Because we're supposed to let money flow through us, and we're supposed to let money be what it actually is, not something to be coveted, but it's a tool, and there's energy around money. And when you realize that there's no scarcity, if somebody has, it means you're not going to have. That doesn't exist. That's not for real. And that, God wants you to. It's okay to have money. There's something wrong with having money, right? Yeah.
God wants you, right, to have money. God wants you to live an abundant, happy, healthy life, right? This infinite energy, whether you refer to it as God or the universe, I often refer to it as God myself. I don't subscribe to a particular religion, though I do refer to it as God or the universe. And the universe wants you to live in a place where you feel nourished, right? Where you can have healthy food, where you can create your dream life. And it knows, to your point, Kim, right, that money is a necessary tool that you need to attract into your life so that you can create your dream life.
So you can live your purpose.
So you can live your purpose.
Right. So you can be 100% totally you. And, and wealth means different things to different people. And it's okay. What, figure out what it means to you, figure out what it looks like for you. And then don't feel like you're doing something special by not letting money flow through you. And because as you receive too, you need to give, right? Like you said, you love to volunteer, you love to serve people. I do too. I love to serve people. And when you do, it comes back to you tenfold. Like you can't outserve God. Like you can't outdo, you can't outgive God. And there's something very special about that as well.
Absolutely. I teach yoga as well, among the many things that I love to do, right? And we each have our own unique gifts, right? And these gifts, a lot of the time, are how we are a being of service. And it's when we start, we make a start with these gifts, right? It's like, for example, I spent a couple of months at the end of 2024 in Costa Rica. I have a 12-month-old Australian Shepherd. She's a beautiful little puppy.
Yes, she is. I saw her picture, and she is. Yes. So cute.
Right. Yeah, she's just 12 pounds, and I'm surprised she hasn't come into the room barking yet. So fingers crossed. But she's a beautiful little dog, right? And her and I went to Costa Rica. I was lucky to get a job teaching yoga, where I had an exchange whereby I would teach a class of yoga every morning in exchange for a beautiful room to stay. Oh my God, it was just beautiful, right? And for me, this was making a start of something that this was not fortune creating for me, but this was a start of how I like to serve people, right? And I would teach that class in the morning. If it was just one person would show up, it didn't bother me. It was one person that showed up, that where I was going to be able to help them have a great day during the day. And I'm a big encourager of that, of making a start and just starting to be of service in a way that is aligned with your true call, and whether that's just helping one person, or whether it becomes helping a larger audience, but just start to be of service, and be of service in a way that is true and unique to you.
So beautifully said. That's such a great note to end on service. And so our time is up. I'm sad to say I could talk to you for hours. Sean, this has been such a pleasure.
Right. Kim, I'm just feeling immense appreciation and gratitude for the time we spent today. I have really enjoyed the call. I love what you're doing in terms of bringing the conversation of love forward into the world in a very inspirational way. And thank you so much for having me here today.
Thank you, Sean. Right back at you. Thank you for your contribution to this world. And I'm happy to know you, and happy that you're sharing the earth with me, I have to say. So thanks again for being here. Thank you all for being here. And until we meet again, be blessed.